2 years ago, a lot of you guys resonated with my video about how I choose to use an Android phone instead of an iPhone with all my MacBooks and Macs. So I wanted to revisit and follow up on that topic to show you guys why and how I'm still using Android with Mac right now, even after all these years. Of course, some things are the same, but some other things of this cross-platform ecosystem are definitely better than before. If you are an iPhone user that's thinking of maybe switching over to Android, then maybe this video will help you out. Now, the reason I still go with Android over iPhone really comes down to a few things. The biggest one is just how much hardware variety you get by being on Android. Right now, I'm using a super thin and capable folding phone as my daily driver, but I also have my Xiaomi 17 Ultra sitting right there with a 1-inch camera sensor and a massive battery inside. And sadly, those things are just not on an iPhone yet. When Apple's foldable eventually comes out, it's most likely going to be this one wide kind of squarish form factor, and that's it, that's your one option. On Android, you've got multiple different shapes and sizes to pick from across different brands, so even when Apple catches up on releasing their own foldable, Android is still going to have so much more range within that one category. Plus, even though I am on a fold right now, when I do want to swap over to the Xiaomi for that 1-inch camera sensor, I can just do that at any time. That sort of flexibility is something I really appreciate about Android. Then there's the fingerprint sensor that basically comes with every Android phone, which I just personally prefer over Face ID. My Fold has a side-mounted fingerprint sensor and it feels super accurate and instant. What I really like about it is that I can have my phone flat on my desk and just tap it without even picking it up. Or I can just pull my phone out of my pocket and it's already unlocked before I even look at it. Now, to be clear, Face ID itself is very impressive for the tech and the security it provides with all these sensors in each of these iPhones, but honestly, it just feels a bit tedious to me because it just needs your phone to be somewhat angled towards your face every time, which just feels slow to me compared to fingerprint unlock. Then there's all the multitasking flexibility. Android just does so much more here. ColorOS has this open canvas mode where you can freely move around and use multiple apps at once. One UI's pop-up windows and split screen work on pretty much every Samsung phone regardless of screen size. I use split screen and pop-up windows a ton, even on my non-folding Android phones, and just the control you have is just way more flexible than what you get on iPhone. And as of right now, I really prefer how Gemini is integrated into Android versus how Siri is on the iPhone. I actually rely on Circle to Search a ton just to translate stuff. As a Korean and English speaker with also Mandarin speaking relatives, the option to quickly translate my entire screen is basically required in my daily usage. iOS does have something like this by screenshotting, but it's not as quick to access or that straightforward. And the last thing that keeps me on Android is just honestly how smoother it is to switch between Android phones compared to jumping between Android and iPhone. If I go from the Fold 7 to the Xiaomi 17 Ultra or any other Android, my chats carry over, my eSIM transfers cleanly, my 2FA apps can sync and move across. Going from Android to iPhone or the other way around is actually a huge pain right now just because of how these companies want to keep you into their exclusive ecosystems. So yeah, chat backups break, eSIM transfers get messy, 2FA apps don't move easily, so staying within Android just means I can keep all the hardware diversity I want from all these OEMs without dealing with that mess every time I want to switch to a new phone. And just as a quick note, why I use Mac over Windows is pretty simple. I switched from Windows to Mac a couple years ago and I really haven't looked back. Once Apple Silicon became a thing and I started to see what these chips were actually doing for performance and battery life at their prices, the math and the money just made way more sense for what I actually do, which is video editing, scripting, and general day-to-day work. My M1 MacBook Air from 2020 is still holding on really strong even now, and the battery life is still holding up pretty well. And my base M4 Mac Mini, which I got for just around $500 almost 2 years ago, is still my main machine for video editing at home. On the OS side of things, I just much prefer how consistent the software quality is on Mac compared to Windows. On Windows, third-party apps are real hit or miss. Some are polished, but a lot feel like they were designed in 2009 and just never updated again. On Mac, even third-party apps feel like they belong on the platform. They match the OS design, they behave the way you expect them to. It's just a way more consistent experience across the board. Plus, the little productivity stuff adds up too. Spotlight search alone is so good compared to searching up anything on Windows. And just in general, I had way less crashes on macOS compared to Windows. And also, Windows has way too many privacy, security, and firmware updates that come way too often, and that feels a bit overwhelming. Windows does have a lot of convenient perks like app switching and snapping, but those types of perks I like most on Windows are solved on Mac through free, super polished third-party apps. Alt-Tab gives you the same kind of app switching, and Rectangle handles window snapping very cleanly. Both are really super easy to set up, and I've been running them for a while now. The only real gap Mac still has is gaming, and that's definitely still true even with all this horsepower on these Apple chips. But for me personally, I mostly just game on my handhelds anyway, so that part doesn't really matter to me. So yeah, those are the reasons why I use Android and why I use a Mac. So let me go over all the ways these two things actually work together. I think this is the part where a lot of people assume there's going to be a lot of friction and fragmentation, but there really isn't. Starting off with file transfers or alternatives to AirDrop, a lot of you might already know this, but Blip is the app to use. It's totally free, works over any network, and it lets me send photos, videos, or files between my saved devices pretty much instantly. So if I shoot something on my Fold or my Xiaomi and I need it on my Mac or the other way around, I'm just going to send it over Blip and it's super quick. I don't even want to deal with Quick Share or AirDrop. I don't even need Bluetooth or need to be that close by, it just works. For SMS and RCS texting, Google Messages is basically the default for Android, and the web version for Google Messages is a thing. So on any browser on my Mac, I can just open it, even install it as a PWA app. There I can read and reply to text right there. Also, I personally never relied on iMessage anyway. After moving out of the US, I needed iMessage even less because the people I talk to are mostly on KakaoTalk, WhatsApp, or Line, and all three of those have proper Mac apps. So for texting and messaging, there is no gap for me at all. Now, if you're on a desktop Mac that obviously doesn't have a built-in webcam, there is an app called Camo that lets you turn your Android phone into a webcam for your Mac. It's also pretty straightforward and easy to set up. You can access any of the lenses on your phone camera, which is awesome. Of course, a dedicated external webcam is a much simpler choice, so I prefer that. So I personally don't rely on Camo much. But yeah, Camo is definitely a nice to have, especially if you've been jealous of iPhone users using their iPhones as their webcams for their Macs. The thing that really ties everything together in this cross-platform ecosystem is basically Google's own ecosystem. Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Tasks, Google Chrome with all my tabs and bookmarks synced, Google Passwords and Passkeys, Google Photos and Google Drive, all of it basically works and syncs the same way on my Android and on my Mac. I really don't feel like I'm missing anything on either side because I'm really not relying on Apple's or Samsung's or Xiaomi's first-party stuff to begin with. Google services run so well across the web on both my Android and my Mac, so it just feels like there's nothing missing in between. Everything's pretty connected. On the AI side of things, Claude is logged into both my phone and my work laptop, so I can just pick up the same chats and projects on whatever device I'm on. On Android, I use Gemini a lot, which also syncs over the web, so I can just pick up right where I left off, my Mac or my Android. And on my Mac Mini, I've been using Cursor a ton for my vibe coding, actually making my own productivity apps. I got a NAS set up at home, so I even self-host some of these apps off my NAS, so it's been a fun experience. If you want to know more about the apps I've been making through vibe coding, let me know down in the comments. That might be a fun video. But anyway, of course, this cross-platform ecosystem is not 100% perfect. There's definitely a few areas that haven't really been solved yet, and that's clipboard sync and screen mirroring. For clipboard syncing, there's just no clean, straightforward solution right now like there is on iPhone and Mac. There are some options out there, but they usually need some extra setup steps, or you need to be on the same Wi-Fi network, or in some cases, you're running a self-hosted server just to get it working. Screen mirroring is kind of the same story. It's not like there's nothing out there, but it's definitely not plug and play. Most of the options you'll find need you to mess with some extra configuration or a third-party tool that adds more step than it saves. I personally didn't even use these features even when I was daily carrying an iPhone, so for me, I didn't feel that gap. But if you are an all Apple user and the clipboard syncing and the screen mirroring are essential to your workflow, then yeah, just stick with your iPhone and Mac. Alright, so that's pretty much the full picture of why this Android and Mac combo still is my ideal setup for me in 2026. There's Android for the hardware flexibility and the multitasking on my phone, and the Mac for my productivity with Google services plus a few solid third-party apps, basically to close the gap between the two operating systems. Let me know down in the comments what you think of my setup here, and if you have any better suggestions for me to improve my setup here, feel free to share it down below so we can all try to improve this little cross-platform ecosystem. If you like this video, make sure to like it, and for more tech videos like this, make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for those. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.